I'm Kaya. My parents stared me in the face last week and stated they regretted having me because I wasn't their golden daughter, not because I'd done anything wrong. For 28 years, I attempted to matter. They got my funds. I was behind. I allowed them to dismember me. They discovered my diary. It was never designed for public reading. First, they broke. The damage? Already done. Tell me what time you are before we continue. From where are you listening? Leave a comment. I read everyone. Spring supposedly softens sunshine, breeze, and speech. Not a soft Saturday morning. I parked down the street. Brenner home was unchanged. A porch swing that hadn't swung in years, blue shutters, and a maple tree I climbed when I was tiny enough to be spotted. While holding the warm scones, I adjusted the scarf over my neck. The scarf was lovely green wool with minimal fraying. Mom apologized to me 5 years ago without uttering a word. Everything inside smelled like butter and cinnamon. I heard Celine's bright, clipped voice before I saw her, constantly performing for her audience. She said hello distractedly, then turned to their mother with her wine glass. Dad read the news on his iPad like a boardroom briefing at the head of the table. No one rose. Nobody took the scones. I gently placed them on the table at the end. I provided blueberry to ease the stiffness. Dad's fave. No reply. Dad nodded intermittently while Celine described her firm's Portland development, like men do when they're not listening but don't want to acknowledge it. To communicate my news, I waited for a break. Over 200 people attended my downtown gallery solo display, which was covered by the Tribune. Last Friday was my opening. Celine lifted her hand mid-sentence. Wait, Dad, tell them about that investor who wants you to speak at Rotary. His voice was tremendous. He reclined, arms folded. He's a nice child. Like someone who listens. Closed mouth. Scones cooled. Nice, I thought. Voice softer, I tried again. The display. Attendance was high. Silence. Mom finally looked. You've always been, Kaya? Very performative as a child. Sweetie, you can be proud without a crowd. Performative. I bit my cheek to keep my grin. I watched her drink tea like she hadn't just cut my ribs. Dad said it. We shouldn't have had a third kid, honestly. Way too much. We were unprepared. It's not your fault, yet it altered everything. His tone was cool. He practiced, as he'd told himself. Like a commercial choice. All done. Blinking, I waited for Celine to laugh and call him crazy. She didn't. No flinching from Mom either. She folded her napkin and added, "We regret it. That doesn't imply we hate you." Avoid twisting. My pause was too lengthy. I had cold coffee. Hot face. Did you say that aloud? Celine said, "You always overreact," without looking at me. I stood slow. My chair noisily scraped the wooden floor. I need air. Though gloomy, the passageway felt familiar. My feet instinctively led me to the picture wall. I hadn't checked it recently. Wish I hadn't. New frames. Vermont wedding for Celine. Her spouse carrying their kid. Dad and Mom during lakeside anniversary dinner. Even Celine and Evan's childhood photographs. Our brothers smiling during an old science fair. None of me. Even my graduation picture. My headgear is twisted and Dad's arm is over my shoulder. Was gone. I approached. This square was clean where it used to hang. Light dust surrounds a pale spot. Like a missing grin tooth. Then my knees buckled. To stabilize myself, I touched the wall. Cotton-like throat. My eyes hurt. I wouldn't offer them tears. I returned to the main hall. I grabbed my luggage and opened the door. Crisp air surrounded us. It hurt less than the stillness within. I murmured on the porch, all to myself. My presence isn't regretted. They regret I didn't become what they desired. Walking back to my flat was forgotten. Probably passed 4 crossings without seeing the lights change. My made blueberry scones were still warm in the bag as I entered my front door. Untouched. Without eating, their buttery richness becomes harsh. Apartment air felt thicker than usual, like sadness had settled in while I was away. Neither did I fall on the sofa. I didn't weep. No screaming. Hanging my scarf, the one Mom gave me 5 years ago, and stared at the empty hook next it. My keys dangled silently. Everything looked same. No feeling was the same. I walked carefully to my dresser. Years of memories were in the bottom drawer I hardly touched. I held onto memories, then buried. I opened it, and sat cross-legged on the threadbare carpet. Behind me, the window whispers city buzz. My fingertips stroked an old birthday card. I hesitated, put it away, and then it struck me. I was 9 again, right outside the kitchen door, half covered behind the flowered curtain, not designed to eavesdrop. I planned to ask Mom to open my second present early. First, her voice pierced through. "We should have stopped it," she said, silently but plainly. Keeping fake is beyond me. Dad spoke next. "Too late. She's here. Try not to let her feel it." Years have passed since I recalled that occasion. Maybe I blocked it. Maybe it was always there, under school performances and whispered apologies that never came. But now it looped like a movie. I grinned during cake cutting that night, photographed with icing on my cheek. I thanked them for the party like a nice girl. No one knew I heard. Maybe they didn't care. Kaya reached inside the drawer again at now, pulling out that year's card. Plain cream cardstock. Their bottom autographs. Nothing else. Not even happy birthday. Love mother and father. Catching my breath. Flipped it. Nothing. I vividly remember Celine's 11th card from that year. Flowers were inked red and purple. Mom wrote a whole letter inside. 2 pages. She read it during supper. Celine was a godsend. So vibrant. And this family's heart. I grinned through it too. I should have burnt this card years ago. Instead, I put it back in the drawer like it hadn't torn me apart. Playing the part my whole life. The simple one. A assistant. Daughter who didn't complain. Who requested little. I maintained calm. I never skipped school. Never resisted. I put my straight A's report card on the fridge since no one else did. When I won the high school regional painting contest, I told Mom she could skip the awards dinner. I told her you had a business dinner, even if she hadn't. Her grin was weak. "You're sensitive, Kaya. Stop taking things personally." It wasn't personal, right? It was invisible. Opened my old diaries. Book pages were worn. The edges wore. Handwriting was crisp and looping. A youngster seeking comprehension. One purple ink line grabbed my attention as I flipped through. "My importance will one day make them regret nothing." A knot formed in my throat. Said, guess that day never arrived. 2 fog-filled days passed. Heavy and still. I seldom left my flat, and when I did, it was for coffee I didn't finish or errands I forgot to start. I anticipated a text on Sunday morning. Sunday brunch. A separate room was reserved by Milas. Be there. Mom? No hi. No apologies. Just a polite order. I reread the words on the screen until they blurred. Nora, usually the anchoring voice, didn't glance up from her crossword when I informed her. "Avoid going," she whispered. "You know what's ahead." Buttoning my coat. "I need to know whether they'll deny it." Adina's cafe was where you went to show off your life. White tablecloths, fresh peonies in little vases, mellow jazz from speakers. Out of habit, I came early with my leather handbag from the previous brunch. The hostess smiled and took me beyond the main room to a secret rear space. I hesitated at the setup. A large, elegantly arranged table for 10 was already humming with polite laughter. A modest 2-person table stood adjacent to it near the kids' play zone. "Excuse me," I pointed. "My party is Brenner." She checked her iPad. "Kaya, agree?" Selected for the tiny table. My jaw tensed. "That one?" She nods. "Right here, ma'am." The chair squeaked as I removed it. I sat, feeling every inch of space between us. Only children slamming spoons behind me drowned out my ears ringing. My hands were in my lap as I glanced at the untouched silverware. Finally, my father rose and tapped a glass. "I'm glad everyone came. Eat and enjoy." Then my mother rose. Her grin was intentional and sweet. "We toast Celine's elevation to regional director and Malice's engagement," she remarked, raising her glass. "Our pride is unmatched. You two make our lives joyful." Clapping, cheers, and cousin Oz. I raised my mimosa, drank carefully, and glanced forward. 10 names were on the table. Nobody spoke my. When dessert arrived, I went to the bathroom. The mirror was overly shiny and pristine. I scarcely knew the lady looking back. Even here, I muttered, they need me gone to appear great. I grabbed my phone. One word to Nora, yes. She would understand. I returned gently, trying to slip back in. Just as I reached my chair, Celine leaned over. She wore harsh perfume. She smiled harder. "You realize they invited you to avoid a scene, right?" I didn't react. Perhaps they should have kept me invisible. Trees ghosted by my windshield on the way home. I ignored the radio. Only quiet. It buzzes around your mind. It took me a while to remove my outerwear at my apartment. I stood in the midst of my living room, the air stuffy and motionless like the walls were holding their breath. My scarf still had a brunch cafe scent. Syrup, disinfectant. My reflection appeared beneath the yellow ceiling light as I approached the hallway mirror. Kaya sat near the toddler area with the same clothing and face. I cautiously removed each shoe, like peeling off foreign skin. I hesitated after dropping my phone on the sofa. New notification buzzed. An email. I picked it up to ignore it. I saw the subject line. Revised Carver Family Holdings Trust. We employed this legal company during the Lake Eden estate scandal years ago. The name was familiar. Opened the email. No welcome, no explanation, just trust updates in bullet points. My name wasn't there. A little letter grabbed my attention. Lake Eden Estate sole trustee and inheritor Celine Carver. I sat on the sofa edge, staring at the TV. Something rose in my throat, like acid or breath squeezed out too quickly. Blinking again, I hoped the words would change. They didn't. I took an old Lake Eden box from the side drawer. I hadn't touched it years. I took out a 2014 folded journal page. They got what I had. I just wanted to belong. My recollection struck me like cold wind through an open door. Mom phoned weeping after the storm, saying the cabin may be repossessed if we didn't pay taxes and legal expenses. At 26, I started selling paintings at pop-up markets. Without hesitation, I transferred $43,000 from savings. I recalled the tight, shaking embrace. Your home is always there, she whispered. What a falsehood. Maybe a script. She said to ease her conscience. I grabbed my phone and phoned Dad. I didn't practice. It wasn't necessary. Picked up. Hello? When would you notify me about the trust update? I asked flatly. He paused. That's difficult, Kaya. Been a while. Distant. I heard Celine behind me. Her voice became irritable. Just tell her it's done. No matter, she wouldn't comprehend. I hung up. No goodbyes. I didn't weep. This time, no. After staring at the floor, I rose and got my keys. Nighttime air smelled like early spring, moist bark, and residual snow. I scarcely noticed my hold on the wheel as I drove to my storage facility on Hennepin. I probed through the faint fluorescent light to find a manila envelope with fading highlighter and a plastic bucket marked tax, property old. Titled Transfer Documents and Lake Eden Receipts. My palms sweated and my heart thudded with something more than wrath as I gripped it. If they desire war, I muttered, they forgot who built their fort. No sleep that night. After removing the envelope from storage, I sat in my kitchen. My bare feet froze on the ancient laminate floor. The moonlight from the little window traced the edges of documents I hadn't opened in years. I said I'd wait until dawn, but my hand rebelled. Coffee I poured at daybreak was chilly. Still, I gripped the cup like it might warm more than my hands. I examined the yellow envelope again. titled Transfer Documents and Lake Eden Receipts. Back when I believed love meant ink, my handwriting. I tried journaling it. Something, but I only managed one sentence. I desired to leave unwelcome places. As quiet as the flat, the words lingered there. I phoned a number I hadn't contacted in a decade by mid-morning. My uncle's buddy, Mr. Halverson. A calm, overly patient guy. I expected formality when his voice came across the phone. "Hi, Mr. Halvorson, Kaya Carver. Not sure you recall." He spoke softly to Kaya. "Yes, I remember. Your uncle loved you." Closed my eyes. Does the Lake Eden property contribution letter I signed still exist? Back in 2012? He delayed so long I feared the phone dropped. A sigh followed. Let me search the archives. I waited. The line's quiet made me feel like a child again, waiting for someone to attend the school performance. Finally, he returned. "I have it," he said. Dated March 4th, 2012. Says you gave $43,000 for the Lake Eden cabin. Notarized. Your parents signed. Why? I felt a subtle trembling as my unaware breath left. Expelled from trust. No one told me. Another pause. But this was different. Waited. He gently informed you that the trust was changed in 2021. I only know because I notarized. You signed it at the hospital after the accident. Everything slowed. Room felt skewed. You mean they modified it while I recovered? I recall your absence. Although weird, I was assured you'd consented. I hadn't. I never did. I sat after hanging up. For 10 minutes. Then I went to the kitchen. I dropped to the floor, back against the cabinet, and the linoleum stung my knees. My fingers trembled from something colder, not fury. I recall the hospital room. Impersonal, white, humming. No visits, not even my mother. One Nora card on the table. They said they were handling family money and couldn't leave. Believed them. Now I knew. I didn't beg for cash. Trusting made me cry. Because I loved them enough to forgive again and again, thinking they'd compromise. I wept because I was never in the will. In the way. When I stood, the sun was low, my legs stiff, my heart empty. I typed on my phone. Viewed the amendment. I studied Celine's name. Hovering thumb above send. The typing bubble briefly appeared and went. I waited. Nothing. Then I deleted. No more ghosting me, I murmured to the air, and for the first time in a while, I didn't feel like I was fading. Driving over seemed longer. The stillness in the vehicle or me weighing every word may have caused it. I drove there for birthdays, holidays, and medical visits, but not today as the youngest daughter attempting to resolve issues. They underestimated me on arrival. I waited in the driveway while the front window curtains moved. They saw me. My attire was basic. No jewels, no tenderness. Just a navy blouse and pants. The folder in my bag was too heavy. I left and climbed the stairs gently. My mother opened the door with a delicate blend of astonishment and indifference. She called me Kaya, like I'd returned a casserole dish. Celine emerged behind her, mid-sipping coffee. Someone's here, she stated too cheerfully. I didn't greet. I hadn't entered. I glanced at them, two ladies who had worked at appearances for years. Then I entered. Coffee? My father inquired from the kitchen without looking up from his phone. No, I said, putting my bag on the table. No tea for me. I'll repay the favor. You removed me. Put myself back in. Under her breath, Celine laughed. Kaya, really? This still bothering you? I passed the folder across the table. Start with this. She opened the first page and sneered. Once again? You constantly overreact. I didn't blink. While I recovered from surgery, you withdrew me from the trust. You altered the history of a property I helped buy. My mother sat with lips pursed. My father stroked his forehead but said nothing. His favorite language was always silence. You didn't forget me, I said, maintaining my voice. I was asleep and had IVs in my arms when you planned it. Sharp-voiced Celine glanced up from the package. You hardly replied. We chose for the family. You were. Not steady. No, standing. Your instability. You hated the concept that I deserved anything lasting. Last, I placed a notarized, dated, signed letter with my name on the table. Lawyer will contact me. Formal mediation begins. No more requests. Celine seemed ready to dispute. My dad finally spoke, then shut up. I turned, got my luggage, and left. No one followed. The return journey was calm yet unusual. Silence that happened after you stopped anticipating a sound that would never come, not rejection. I took off my shoes and entered my living room. Air felt, yet lighter. I carefully put my luggage on the counter and glanced at the window as the sun set. No one in particular heard me say, I'm no longer terrified of being alone. Silence was heavier than confrontation, which surprised me. The official heading was my initial impression when I opened the letter Thursday morning. Unknown legal firm engraved in gold. My name was bold, unblinking underneath the subject line. Skimming, I hoped for a typo. It wasn't. Celine counterclaimed. She said my emotional instability made me ineligible to participate in family estate distribution finances. There were sketchy therapeutic allusions. Mental anguish after a car accident. The hospital visit she never made is not mentioned. I stood in the middle of my kitchen clutching the letter like it was radioactive. Short, shallow breath. I didn't weep. I remained silent. I looked till my hand gave out and fell to the floor. I sat elbows on knees at the sofa edge for 5 minutes, squinting against a light no one could see. Old Harmony Commons messages arrived in my email later that day. I volunteered for this nonprofit years ago before it engulfed my life. A panel. It's Thursday afternoon. Topic: Invisible labor. The unnoticed work of women. People remembered me, asking if I may speak again like 5 years ago when we collected money for single parents. I almost refused. I responded back, I'll be there. I stood backstage in a small Minneapolis meeting room around 3 p.m. Rows of seats, a platform, and paper cup coffee. No big deal. My hands shook from what I was not saying, not fear of expressing. My name was called. Stepped forward. Artist, daughter, and someone who attempted to not be a burden for much of her life, Kaya Carver. I saw nods. Older ladies. A few college kids. A guy in the rear watched with crossed arms. I thought being easy meant being safe. That I'd be retained if I didn't protest or dispute anything. I glanced down, then at the room. Invisible is not the same as liked. The room was quiet. Sharp, purposeful heels approached the mic. I heard a lovely voice behind me say hello. Sister Celine here. I simply wanted to clarify. Gasps. Some looked. I didn't. Celine said that she's stressed. We concerned about her accident. Her situation is difficult, not unstable. I looked forward. I held the mic tighter but let her talk. She continued with a too-perfect grin. We all want what's best for the family, but memories don't often match reality, particularly when emotions are strong. After waiting for her to complete, I approached her carefully and quietly. My sister's correct. She grinned. I broke down. Her grin sank. Do you know why? I was deleted out of my life for 28 years. I took one paper from my folder. This is my journal entry. My dad discovered it. First time in 28 years, he wept. I read silently. It wasn't necessary. Instead, I folded it in half and surveyed the room. Some of us spend our lives shrinking in hopes of being accepted if we're little, nice, and quiet enough. Some tables were never set for us. I reinserted the page into the folder. Room didn't cheer instantly. It was too quiet. A gentle clap from the left is followed by another. She whispered loudly in the center, where we could all hear. Everyone was afraid to say what she did. The applause faded, but its echo lasted days. It surprised me. I assumed I'd leave the stage and go quietly like usual. But Monday morning proved me incorrect. The inbox was full. Random people, old classmates, and a professor I hadn't heard from in a decade. Thanks were offered by most. Few reported crying. I remembered one sentence. I felt less alone with you. A surprising name was underneath them. Longtime father's attorney Arthur LaRue. Something your father wanted you to have was the subject line. An email was brief. He attempted to talk to you last year before his bypass. Stated he never stated anything correctly. He left me a paper. Perhaps it's time if you're up. I lingered, hands hanging above my keyboard. Then I answered Thursday at 10 a.m. That Thursday was cloudy. Thick clouds loomed low, bracing the metropolis. Arthur's workplace was a pleasant downtown suite with wood paneling and a receptionist who served peppermint tea. He nodded and passed a big envelope over the desk without saying more. His eyes were softer than compassion. Maybe guilt, maybe relief. I opened an 11-month-old amendment to my father's will. I finally saw who kept this family upright, Takaya, at the top, in the handwriting that had signed all my grade cards. Yes, more. Legal acknowledgments, trustee revisions, and complete Lake Eden co-ownership reinstatement. One phrase overshadowed everything. I didn't weep. Arthur was shocked by my heavy breath. I felt balanced for the first time in years. Instead of a folder, I traveled to my folks' place Friday morning with a sealed envelope and firm hands. My mother seemed confused rather than worried when she answered the door. What are you, Kaya? Not here to fight, I whispered. Just informing you. The truth survived. Your refusal to read it. I handed her the envelope. Both could read his handwriting through the seal. I looked at my father briefly before turning away. Their stillness followed me down the stairs and halfway to the pavement. Then, Kaya, I turned. My father slumped on the porch bench. His shoulders trembled. The journal on his lap. Cracked spine, loose pages. His thumb was beneath the line that started. I felt like extra baggage when I was 9. He wept, deep, guttural sobbing after decades of denial. Inside, I saw my mother sitting in the hallway with her arms crossed and shivering. Didn't return. Instead, I got in my vehicle, softly closed the door, and let the solitude comfort me. It was unfair. It was recognition. A gentle but forceful voice sounded from inside. It took 28 years, a journal, and failure. They read what I hadn't dared speak. I was drinking tea by the window in my flat that night when my phone chimed. A message. I wish you joy. You ruined them. Celine. I watched the screen. Seconds of thumb hovering. Then I deleted. Without hesitation. No blinking. I ignored Celine's message. It wasn't necessary. 3 weeks later, the Lake Eden breeze brought a quiet I thought was for others. Simpler families. Gentler recollections. I was realizing that tranquility isn't innate. You choose to construct. My aunt gave me a little cottage with all I needed. Freedom, silence, and no expectations. Soft clay color was applied to the walls. Something anchored. I moved gently. No hurry, no show. Simple presence. One picture is on the fireplace shelf. Not a reunion or celebration. It's me at 8, carrying a red notepad with marker smudges on my face and a ribbon in my hair. She knew nothing but could carry things discreetly. I framed a ripped journal page beside it. One that made me weep. Previously ignored. Glass covers it now. Because it established my existence, not because it pained me. I found one final unsent letter a few nights ago. Months after their hospital stay, they seldom showed up. That began with I forgive you. And finished with a statement that tormented me too long. Being enough was my goal. After 2 readings, I brought it to the fire pit. The paper twisted swiftly, went black, and crumpled into ash. It vanished with the breeze. No weeping, not bitter. Just release. Because sometimes apologies never arrive. Silence is sometimes an apology. Something was stuck beneath the floorboard while cleaning the screened porch on Thursday. A worn red ribbon. The type that bonded my childhood notebooks. I paused, thumbed the tattered edges, and grinned. It was wrapped around a fresh notepad that afternoon. Page blanks. Clear slate. Not beginning afresh. I moved onward. By Friday, I was facing a semicircle of teens in the community center. My first creative writing class. The room smelled of possibilities and dry erase markers. Young Lily, 15, tentatively raised her hand. "Does it ever stop hurting?" she asked. I halted. Not because I couldn't answer. I eventually did. "Not always," I said. "But it ceases defining you." She nods. Something changed behind her eyes. An inkling of faith. The chain broke for the first time in a while. Perhaps for her and me. Later that night, I sat on the porch with cinnamon tea and my notepad on my knees. Birdsong faded until twilight as the lake shimmered. I considered how long I tried to be enough. Long I waited for someone to say, "You mattered." Now I knew. I was correct to start. I spoke it out loud as if the trees needed to hear it. My family broke me, but I rebuilt. Not to prove them wrong, but to remember I was right. Tell me in the comments if you've experienced this and had your quiet misunderstood for weakness. Everyone was red.